historically, women want to be slim, fit, not put on weight, lose fat, generally speaking.
Eating a little bit earlier, the sun's going down, we're sleeping much better when we have food earlier and some space before sleep. And then we get up in the morning, maybe we're having breakfast, at some reasonable hour in the morning after sunrise, and it feels like a smaller fast, and your body's much happier that way.
When you talk about heavy lifting for women, why is this so critical?
How do we get to a place where we're training to failure? And that feels like, well, why would I want to train to failure? Or that feels like, oh, is it going to be like scary bro energy at the gym? It's like, you can train to failure on a machine. You don't have to get under a barbell or under dumbbells, which are like free weights in a way that might feel, but you can do it on machines. You can do it anywhere. If anyone's listening and not thinking they have to lift heavy, it's like, this is the I love you news, and the kindness, with so much kindness and love, like, there's nothing that is going to change your body, lean you out, get you stronger, give you a better capacity for living into, you're 100 in a way that feels like you're still vital.
Yeah.
And you have mobility. There's nothing else.
Is there anything you're excited for in the female space for biohacking that increases longevity and performance and sleep?
We have a part of our month that we can uptake oxygen up to 25% less based on some of the studies. So learning how to really breathe biomechanically well, it's always going to be the number one thing you can do to like change and organize sort of your stress response and things like that. My favorite time of day to do it is like sunset, because you're getting low level light. You're setting yourself up for success, like in the sense of like, okay, I'm beginning to unwind my day when I get out. Your metabolism boosts, like for the 36 hours after a cold plunge, it's like 200% plus metabolism boost. I get a little hungry. I then take my time to cook a little dinner. And then after I eat, sun sets, I can set myself up for really good sleep that night. So I like kind of love that unwinding process.
Hey, welcome to Passion Love Pursuit. I have Kristin Weitzel on the show today. I'm so honored to be able to sit down with you in person, because I know we've been going back and forth, and I just love sitting with somebody and be able to exchange the energy. And of course, something we're so passionate about, which is the space of biohacking. And I've been in it for so long, and I'm loving how it's shifting. There's a lot of different conversations coming up about the difference between women and men and how we should approach the wellness and biohacking tools. And I would love to hear your experience, because you've been in it for so much time now. And I would love to hear how it's shifted for you since you started incorporating more a woman's approach to biohacking.
Yeah, amazing. First, thank you so much for having me here. I just want to honor the work you've been doing. The show's been on for so long, so it's so powerful to sit with another woman in the space who's doing this great work around health optimization and sharing so much info. So thank you. For me, I around the time that like Dave Asprey was coining the term biohacking, I was playing sort of in that field of health optimization, and it really all started with a nutritional path. I was a dancer when I grew up. I wanted to know how I could eat and still have the physique that I needed, and was watching a lot of the dancers around me just not eat very well at all, or, eating so lean that it was not good for their bodies. It was all about like the thin physique. And I was like, I want to eat food and feel good and also like be able to fit into my costume. So I was on that trajectory for a while, and I was sort of the weird kid in high school with a juicer, like when people weren't really doing that. And it was always about a deep sense of curiosity and wondering how I could feel energized and feel full and feel like I had nourishment, but also, vibrancy and, again, like the physique that I wanted and the way I wanted to play in the world and dance. And that just wove me into getting really curious. And I was very lucky to have a partner for about 10 years that was just a big researcher. And so I would be like, what's going on with this paleo movement? Or like, we discovered Mark Sisson. We read this book by Younger called Clean. And I would sort of go off to the office, and he would do his research gig, but I'd come home for dinner, and he would have sort of been my ChatGPT long before it existed, and said, hey, here's the summary of this thing. And I read 7 articles and 2 research papers around, paleo eating or primal. And we just sort of like got on that trajectory of that piece, which was like a part of the earlier like biohacking vertical, right? It was like how people were combining foods or not, or doing keto or all of that. So it started a lot with food. I became a nutrition specialist while I was working in corporate America. But the really, like the early days of me leaning in, I realized very quickly there were not a lot of women. It was heavily male dominated. It was a lot about injecting things and red light on your testicles. And, Ben Greenfield was saying sensational things. And the women that were around, I think there was a general consensus, like, I think we tend to be more risk averse, right? Because we're potentially the ones that are like making the babies and keeping them protected in the tribe. And I think we were looking around and thinking, okay, like some of this feels good and some of this feels intense. And where is there sort of the other side of the coin for us? And it took a bit, but now I think we see this a lot more frequently when women are in the industry are sharing details. There's so much about like cycle syncing and perimenopause and menopause. And for anyone who's listening to this episode to talk about biohacking for females, it's important because anyone who's listening has a female in their life. And I think we overlook that a lot. And it's not just about like, oh, it's like my period or my OBGYN. It's like there's so much more to the ways that women biohack their bodies. And so, yeah, I'm just thankful that we can talk about it and get into the nitty gritty.
So thankful that there's people like you bringing it forward, because I think these conversations need to be had because there is such a vast difference. And so I love what you're talking about. But one thing you mentioned is health optimization and biohacking. I feel they are one and the same. And I really want to like marry those words because that's really what it is because biohacking, some people might think it's all these tools. And yes, there are these technologies, but it really comes down to how could we optimize our health by using these tools or even returning back to nature instead of these fancy diets, the, cleanses, juices, and all these different things when it's really about health optimization. So I love that you mentioned those two words. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the biohacking things we hear of, especially today. There's a narrative. Let's bring up fasting. So it's been told fasting is one of the greatest tools, which it still is. It's here to stay. But there is a difference between fasting for a man and fasting for a woman. And one of the narratives going around today is eat, especially for women, eat within 60 minutes of waking, 30 grams of protein before coffee. So I'd love to hear from you. Is this beneficial? Is this a great approach? And who would this be beneficial for?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think the thing that's on the table always, part of the conversation is for women who are out there wanting to get more optimized, just understanding where your hormone profile is a really big piece of this puzzle. Are you in your reproductive years? Do you have dysregulated hormones? Are you at perimenopausal or menopausal? Because it does make a difference on these when we use these tools, like fasting as this example. If you're menopausal and your hormones are a bit more normalized or baseline or less fluctuating, because they are fluctuating once you've hit menopause, they're fluctuating less, you can fast with a little bit more aggression or like assertion. From fasting across the board, I think I'm quite reserved with females in fasting. For the breakfast conversation, I think that we were fasting far too long, intermittent fasting, and skipping the earlier meals of the day, and it is an important piece for us to feed ourselves well. I work with 80% females, and so when they come to me and they say, I don't feel like breakfast, or I'm going to go train in the morning and I don't want anything, I'm making sure that if they don't want to eat food, because sometimes we don't want to train on a very full stomach, it feels icky. If they don't want to eat food, that they're putting something in there that's going to be, again, it's like the biohack or the health optimization tool to help support that. Perhaps it is a protein shake, perhaps it is amino acids, but that we're getting something in the system before we train. And as our quote unquote breakfast, my preference would be that it's some sort of food. And I think this is the part that's left out of like that biohacking, which is a word that not many women were loving in the beginning. So this health optimization piece is so prevalent and feels a little bit softer. But I think the piece for women is, how do we use the thing that was missing from biohacking so many years, our intuition, that's our real true sense of what feels good in our body, and then decide how to marry the intuition with all of the science and say, okay, cool, I'm going to get some kind of food in me in the morning. But the 16-hour window, the like hard fasting, I just think that is something that perhaps reserved for men. And it doesn't mean you can't fast like that, but I'd much rather have someone do like a 3-day water fast once a quarter then have them intermittent fast every single day of the week at a really strong break where they don't have a lot of, they have a 16 hours plus fasting. I'd rather have women do it, a water fast for a few days if they're open to that versus hardcore intermittent fasting every day.
And what's the reason that we should have the protein before the coffee? Just so we could
just so we can nail it. I mean, and here's the other thing too, is I would love to tell women and humans in general, there are other tools outside of the world of coffee. I realized I went off of caffeine, although I do drink paraxanthine now, but I went off of caffeine for 2 years, and I realized it wasn't actually about the caffeine. I have plenty of energy, and I have a lot less spikes and crashes. I just really want a hot beverage in the morning or some kind of ritual that feels really, lovely, beautiful, even if it's a cacao or something that has some caffeine in it, or an herbal tea that I'm mixing with a fun nut milk. It's how do we get the ritual? So the big thing is with caffeine, right? It gives us this big spike, and then we have a crash after it. And if we don't have protein in the system, specifically protein is the thing that's going to curb that. Anything else in the system, we're going to have that spike. And it's women, we're navigating cortisol and our morning waking experience and all of that. And the other piece is, for me, I want people to get some level of fitness if they can in the morning. It's very different for everyone who has kids and lives and all that. And if we're not putting protein, i.e. amino acids, in our system, then we don't have the fuel, right, to do the thing with the muscle that we need to do, which is in order to make muscle and keep it on our bodies.
Yeah. Great. And what is the reason women should do fasting, intermittent fasting? What part of their cycle would they benefit most from fasting if they choose to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in reproductive years, the hardest time to fast and the hardest time to cold plunge and the hardest time to do a lot of things that are stressors on the body tends to be the 5 days leading up to your period, right? So you're in your luteal phase. Your body, there's several things going on where we tend to be a bit more disconnected from our pelvic floor. From a breathwork standpoint, we're not optimizing oxygen as much as the first half of the cycle. We're breathing more rapidly. We're mouth breathing. We're sleeping a bit less. We some of us can be a bit more ornery. Maybe that's coming from more mouth breathing and less connection and all of that. And we just feel a bit more, stress intolerant. So that's the time I would say give yourself some more nourishment, some space to eat the things that you want. And I mean, Erica, this is the other thing I want to say, which is 90% of the women that show up to work with me one-on-one, they're not eating anywhere close enough calorically or protein base on a daily basis. So I'm always kind of fighting the good fight, I think. And a lot of times women will call me and say this is a lot of food. This is a lot of calories.
Right.
This is a lot of protein. And what I repeatedly have to kindly share is hey, this is the game. We have to play with our nervous system as well, feeding ourselves so the body feels safe, at least in the beginning. So we have enough nourishment and the body doesn't think, oh, no food's coming. We have to slow down the metabolism. We have to stop all these other processes. And so quite often women are eating more and they're actually losing body fat, getting stronger. And they're how is this working? And it's because we're giving ourselves the nourishment we need.
Such a big conversation. We own a whole episode about that. Food's a big, big topic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's great to mention that because I think historically women want to be slim, fit, not put on weight, lose fat, generally speaking. Yeah. So I think women, we've just been, if you want to say, trained to eat less and be fearful of food, carbs and everything. And again, I've been on my whole journey with that.
Yeah.
And definitely have had, wanting to stay the same size or lose weight or whatever it may be. And so I've tried all the diets and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's because we have feared food for so long. And so it's retraining people to understand how this nourishes your body and how to kind of tweak it so that, like you said, then actually you could lose weight.
Yeah.
Eating more.
Yeah. And I would say the most actionable piece of this thing for looking at food and fasting together is to really start to think about something which is we call circadian aligned eating, which is, checking in with yourself that you're having your last meal before sunset. And then if you're going to fast, it's like a lighter fast, right? You're having dinner by 6 p.m. or it depends on, of course, where you are in the world and what time of year it is. But 6:30, you're having dinner and then you're not doing the thing that I love to do, which is like have a little snack here and there in the middle, late in the night. So it's like, how do we stop at 6:30, finish our meal, and then actually consider that like a fast, right? So we're eating a little bit earlier, the sun's going down, we're sleeping much better when we have food earlier and some space before sleep. And then we get up in the morning, maybe we're having breakfast, at some reasonable hour in the morning after sunrise, and it feels like a smaller fast, and your body's much happier that way.
Yeah, I think the key is not eating so close to bedtime.
Yeah.
Because sleep is number one, right? So if we're not optimizing our sleep by reducing our eating window before the hours of putting ourselves to bed, that makes such a wild difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know the common thing we hear is, and I'm sure people you work with, is women tend to have adrenal fatigue or thyroid issues, hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. And I'm just curious, why is this happening? Why is this so common in women?
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of environmental stressors, right? Our bells and whistles on our phone, those kinds of stressors, but also when you look at everything from, some of the grocery stores are now doing like specific receipts that don't have this endocrine disrupting ink and things on them. And there's just things that all the time, plastics in our bottles, et cetera, on and on and on. These things are endocrine disrupting, they're challenging and toxic and stressful for the system. I think, the future of everyone's health, and especially females, is how we, like what we take out of our body versus what we're putting in our body. We need to be thoughtful about what's going on in our detox pathways, what are we putting in our system. Just because we eat really clean, like you and I are going to be, aficionados of getting everything right. And we're living in an environment that is the real world. So we have to do tests to check and say what's going on with toxicity, what's going on with my hormones, what's going on with like thyroid, adrenals, all of that. I'm definitely not an expert on adrenal fatigue. I just don't love the term because there's a lot of different things at play there. And I think we do need to support our adrenals. But there, quite often when I'm doing lab work with females, it's like there are other things that are actually like what my mentor would say is like, how do we find the head of the snake? We have thyroid issues, we have autoimmune, we have all these things popping up, and that's not the root cause.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why testing is so, so important. And there's a way to test as well. Like when it comes to hormones for women, you need to test during a certain time to get the accurate numbers for each individual hormone. Yeah. So I'm a big component for testing, not guessing, because we need to see what's really going on underneath the hood.
Yeah. And let's say this to like women who are listening. When you're testing, like, I don't know how you are with lab work, but like I test every quarter. I do 13 vials of blood. I do a urine test. Like I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm doing in coaching. So it's a bit excessive. My mother's always like, oh my God, how much blood are you pulling all the time? But I want to test for lots of different things because I'm also experimenting with different tests, different labs. So I don't think it has to be as intense. And I also want to say to people, get insurance to cover it where you can if you have that kind of insurance in your life, in your world. But getting tested twice a year, understanding that if you go to a doctor and he's running a hormone panel, he or she, if they're running a hormone panel on you, a good doctor is going to, especially when you first start seeing them, they're going to run something like pull a blood 5 weeks in a row, once a week, or a few days in a row, or they're going to ask you this question. If someone doesn't say, what day of your cycle are you on, which you need to know when they pull your blood, then they can't accurately read your hormone profile because they have no idea where you are. And the reason I pulled 5 weeks in a row, and many doctors will do that, or many functional doctors will do that, is because then you can really get an understanding of the landscape of what's happening in the female body. And we're these beautiful creatures with superpowers beyond measure. And also men don't necessarily have to test bloods 5 weeks in a row the first time they do it. But getting an understanding of where you are in your cycle, understanding the rhythms in the body, and then testing against those, like that's a really good barometer if you're with the right functional medicine practitioner or not. Because too many females come to me almost too late in the sense of their hormones are dysregulated and then they go to test, but there's no baseline to compare it to because they didn't test when they were healthy. So I say, when I work with women, I include a hormone test. We do a Dutch panel. But I say to any women out there, hey, get it now, get it once a year if you feel like everything's regular and fine. So you're just clear on it, especially if people want to get pregnant. Like there's so many things we need to understand about the body in that regard. Just want to mention that because it's important.
So good. And I'll plug it in right now. Function health, I think, is so great when it comes to, number one, insurance doesn't cover a lot of these tests. So function health is really great. I just did it. I did my 2 a year that you get a follow-up 3 to 6 months, and the pricing is phenomenal.
Great.
So I'll drop a discount code in the show notes. But what I love is they test everything, and they also specifically say test on the 2 to 3 days of your period. So
yeah,
so important. So I'm glad we were talking a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk about going back to the cycle syncing and fitness. So this is a big one. I know we're hearing a lot right now that women should train differently during certain stages of their cycle. And I know we're mostly talking to, of course, women in the reproductive years. Menopause is kind of like a little different. So I want to focus on the women that still have a period. So there's 4 stages of our cycle. How should we train and cycle sync with our cycle to optimize our fitness?
Yeah, I love this question. And I will say this first thing, which is my disclaimer, which is for a number of years. And I was very staunchly saying to women, day 7 through 15, we have more estrogen. We have a rise and a spike in the body across ovulation, and that can build us more muscle over time versus any other time in the cycle. There is a notion that there is energetically and systemically, some of that truth is in there. Like I strongly, from some of the research that's out there, believe that is the piece. I will also say that I just interviewed, or a year or so ago, interviewed Lauren Colenso-Semple, who works with Andy Galpin, who worked with him before, and now she's in a lab and she's doing all this testing, like the really rigorous work of testing women at least like once a day over weeks to see where they are. And what she sees is this really beautiful thing about the nature of the female physiology, which is every woman's cycle is different, right? It's 24 days, it's 32 days, it's 28 days, it's 27 and a half days, whatever it is. People's period lasts. We know this as women innately, but it's so different woman to woman. And then some women are ovulating 2 hours, some women are ovulating 27 hours. And it's just, and maybe that month that's what it is, and the next month it's different, right? So we're these beautiful, fantastic creatures with so much like intuition and so much beautiful rhythm. And we're really hard to track down and kind of nail down. So she looks at that research and she specifically looks at it from a comparison to like muscle fibers and what's going on in the structure of the body. So without going into all the science, the long story short is she really feels like the jury's still out. But here's what I know, and here's what you know, and many women who are listening may know, which is the first 2 weeks of my cycle, like I don't have any issues when I have my period. So I will like ice plunge and train and do all those things. Some women are like, I want to be more secluded and chill and like on my own and turn inward, and on my period, or I don't feel great or I'm cramping. So I'm not advocating that people have to go out and train, but I like to do all those things when I have my period. My least favorite time is the last few days before my period. The rest of the month, we're fluctuating. And we feel, generally speaking, my clientele feels like, hey, my period finishes and there's like a space of like 5 to 10 days where I go, my estrogen is rising, ovulation is happening. Like I want to put on my red high heels and a good lip. And like, I feel really extroverted. I feel strong. I'm like leaning into myself as a female. And those are the days I will go and I will train my ass off, like, because it feels good to lift heavy weight, which everyone who's listening, heavy weight, ladies.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. But I feel like a powerhouse even more than, more. Sure, I feel like a powerhouse all the time, but those weeks I feel really incredible. And so energetically, when we feel that way, we should be leaning into that, right? And so the propensity for us to be able to develop more muscle during that time, as we are getting more and more science and research around it, like there's that strong possibility that exists as an underpinning. And we have the energy, the capacity, the ability to train all the time, but especially and specifically those first couple of weeks after that first, like, let's say 7 to 14 days after our period, energetically, we're feeling pretty solid. So it's like, let's go.
Yeah. So you mentioned that estrogen, we build more muscle during that phase. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like anti-catabolic. So it helps support the overall system. So I want to say we build more muscle. And also when I say that, I know that there are researchers out there that are working to actually see that that is the 100% truth with most human females. And there's just, we weren't allowed to do research on women until the 90s. Like it was basically been women in their reproductive years. It was basically banned. And we continue to push. Kayla Osteroff was a women's hormone and brain expert. Like she talks a lot about the fact that we're not making gains fast enough in the funding of research that has enough women in it. There's still so much research around men, and everybody wants it and everybody's trying. And it also is really expensive because we have to pull all these bloods and check in with cycles all the time. So it just becomes a thing. So I'm just saying that because yes, there is research and there are trials and evidence that shows the women building more muscle during that period of training. And where is that coming from specifically? Is it coming from the energetic body that has more, those women who are in those trials, right? You can't separate how you feel from what your body's doing. So is it coming from the fact that estrogen is anti-catabolic, meaning it's not going to slow down muscle growth? Or is it coming from the fact that women are feeling like stronger, better, faster, and so they're pushing harder, right? It's hard to separate those two. So the answer, like any good answer, is yes and. Sure. Yes, we feel like that can be a thing that is happening, and the science keeps growing and changing. So it's a combination of the whole body that's working in that direction for us. You know, women will ask this, does that mean I don't have to train in the last 2 weeks of my monthly cycle? It's like, no, you need to be having fitness variance and training according to how you feel and what your body's doing hormonally all the time. But if I was going to choose, I'd say strength train like crazy the first couple of weeks. Continue to do some lifting, but maybe you're doing more accessory work. And the last few days before your period, you're doing some like yoga, Pilates, like slow lifting. Also, depending on what's going on with you, if you have Hashis or you have autoimmune, you don't want to do things that are going to create challenges with like joint stretching. So maybe you're lifting, kettlebells low and slow, etc. So there's a lot of nuance, right, in all the things that go on in our bodies.
Yeah. Okay, so the lifting heavy, of course, there's a lot of, sometimes when I when you like something on Instagram and then you see it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I liked a Pilates thing and now I'm like seeing it all the time now. And it's so funny. I personally do the reformer, which is Legree. Yeah. Legree to me, and also I've had the founder of Legree, Sebastian Legree, on my podcast, but Legree and Pilates is actually not the same. And they vary it in the same. It's not. Legree is actually extremely challenging and it's super heavy, and like I feel enabled sometimes to do it. Yeah. And I train all the time. Yeah. I'm like, this is so weird considering I train all the time. But I just want to explain, when we talk about Pilates, it's more low impact, very slow and not heavy weight. Legree is actually, I feel it's like strength training, but it's it's focusing more on the slow twitch muscles. But when you talk about heavy lifting for women, why is this so critical? And like, let's drill it in the ladies' heads right now.
Yeah. I mean, so maximum overload principle would just say we need to get to a place, to simplify it, it's like, how do we get to a place where we're training to failure? And that feels like, well, why would I want to train to failure? Or that feels like, oh, is it going to be like scary bro energy at the gym? It's like, you can train to failure on a machine. You don't have to get under a barbell or under dumbbells, which are like free weights in a way that might feel, for someone who's not biomechanically inclined or hasn't trained before, it's always good to get a few sessions with a trainer to show you how to like lift and move. But you can do it on machines. You can do it anywhere. The reason we want to get under heavy weight is because we are, number one, let's just like say this, which is like osteoporosis, right? We want stronger bone density as we age. We want to make sure that we're feeling like, we have the capacity to carry things and function in life. The other piece is the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you burn at rest. So if anyone's out there trying to burn body fat, there's your answer, that why you should be putting more muscle on your body. And I'd like to believe, although I still have plenty of people that come to me and think, well, I don't want to get big. And I know in California and Austin, it's going to feel different, but it's like, it will take so much work and so much protein and so much lifting twice a day to look like a bodybuilder on stage. It's like hand and clear heels. Like, you're just not going to have that response. So there's nothing to worry about there. It's like lifting heavy weights so that you can get more muscle, because muscle is also a marker of longevity. It's like Gabrielle Lyon would say, we're not over fat or overweight. We are under muscled, right? Muscle is going to help us move. It's going to have us live better. It's just going to like reduce all-cause mortality. And as we age, we're going to age better with muscle on our body, and as well as like burning more calories at rest. So
Yeah.
it's such an ever important piece. And the challenge is that women will show up quite often, and because we're more risk averse, but we just sort of underguess what we can actually lift. So I trained with a couple of girlfriends that will probably listen to this podcast. But I trained with a couple of girlfriends, and they will tell you that I will pick up the weight that is a little bit too heavy for me. I will ask for a spot. I will move a weight in front of them that's actually a few pounds heavier if we're working with dumbbells. And they'll be like, I'm not ready to lift that. And I'll be like, yes, you are. Because the thing is, we need to be able to think safely about what we can do that's pushing this maximum overload, meaning get yourself to 6 or 8 reps of something really heavy to feel what that feels like, because that's how we then get the muscle to respond so it gets stronger versus doing like 50 reps with pink dumbbells that weigh 3 pounds. Like it's fine if you're in a class and you're utilizing rapid movement with light weights like that. Like some Pilates classes have lower weights. It's like you're not going to move quickly with really heavy weight. But slow and strong training is just, there's no substitute for it. And Legree is amazing. Like, let's just put that out there. Legree is amazing. It's a bit of a differential from some other Pilates style classes out there. Let's say that. And if anyone's listening and not thinking they have to lift heavy, it's like, this is the I love you news, and the kindness, with so much kindness and love. Like, there's nothing that is going to change your body, lean you out, get you stronger, give you a better capacity for living into, you're 100 in a way that feels like you're still vital.
Yeah.
And you have mobility. There's nothing else. So you might as well get a grasp of it now. It doesn't have to be an hour. You don't have to have like 40 pounds of creatine and 800 protein shakes and be like that chick, but you need to be lifting heavy, and that's relative. Like what I say to my mom to do on a machine at her retirement home is very different than when I tell someone who's a 30-year-old woman who's working with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So good. I love that you drilled that home. The other thing that I think is so important that women don't really think about is the recovery piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you're training heavy, you do need to recover from that, because that's when your muscle actually grows. And so the women that are pushing hard and continuously hard, what can you say about recovery and why this is so essential?
Yeah, I can say that, like, you are only as fit as what you can recover from. Right? So if you look at it in that light, this is what happens sometimes too, when women are like, let's do a boot camp for 3 weeks. We're going hard every day or 5 days a week, whatever it is. And they may lose a little bit of body fat or shift a bit of their body's, body fat percentage, etc. Shift how they feel, gain some muscle, but they're going so hard all the time without recovery that if they stay on a decently clean nutrition plan and they do a little bit of working out after that, like 30-day intense boot camp or whatever it is, then all of a sudden that's when they will like lose weight, feel a lot better, notice how strong they are, because they're actually giving themselves some more space to recover. They're not going hard every single day. So if you wake up and you're like, be crushed from yesterday's workout once in a while, you have to test your edges. But if you wake up every day and you're like, I'm sore, this is hard, I don't feel good, and you're not recovering from it, well, then you're not actually getting the full benefit of the fitness that you're doing. You have to give your body that space between to heal and to recover well. And it's like why we can train different muscle groups. It's why this other thing is so important, which is fitness variance. So training with heavy weights, great. Maybe that's like 3 days a week. You're putting something in that's giving you better like stretch or mobility. That could be like a yoga or a Pilates or a functional movement class, or, or I don't know, like Zumba, whatever, like getting in some cardio. I'm a big fan of sprint work. Maybe you get on a spin bike. So varying up all those stressors during the course of the week and the course of the month is also the thing that's going to get you super nimble and strong. So our body's like always kind of keeping it a little bit in like that. It's guessing, hey, what's going to come next? What's Erica going to do now? We got to be ready for it. We got to level up all the cells and all the muscular health.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned intuition earlier, and I want to pull that out, because when it comes to training, eating, really anything, I love that woman returning to trusting their intuition on that. Like, if you're feeling worn out, don't push yourself to go do a heavy training session. Like, I think the difference between women and men and not saying men shouldn't do this, is really honoring the space and the time that you're in. And I think it's like this delicate dance between like timing and intensity, like knowing where you're at. So I love that you mentioned intuition, because I think that's really returning to the essence of biohacking for women.
Yeah, absolutely. And feeling into all the places where that is right and wrong for you. Like, we have to gamify it in the sense that, like, it's like the client who will come to me and like leave me a message and be like, yesterday I had this intuitive hit. Like, I needed to go have like a large pizza and 2 pints of ice cream with my family, and it's like, cool, like, go have your treats and whatever the thing is, but don't tell me that's intuition, because it's not intuition. And then sometimes maybe you're like, oh, I'm so tired. It's probably not a good time to go to the gym, but like maybe I want to go to the gym to just like see if it's like, is it going to give me more energy? Am I going to actually sleep better? Whatever might happen. And from a recovery standpoint as well, many women, I train women and I do a lot of breath and cold plunges and things like that. And that can be recovery. And also there's sometimes that I will say to a woman, like, last few days before your period, you're super stressed at work, big executive running a company. Like, we're not going to like cold plunge or sauna or anything. Like, what you need is like a hot bubble bath. And like, that can be your recovery. Or maybe you need to skip the training or the cardio and do an extra hour of sleep for yourself. Can you fit that in? So yeah, intuition is so important.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your specialty, which is cold exposure and breath, which is so huge. And there is a narrative going around lately, I know, around the internet about cold exposure not being good for women. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the rumor mill going around on the internet is spawned from the Mel Robbins interview with Dr. Stacy Sims, who's a prolific researcher, triathlete coach, and just and I've had her on my podcast. She's amazing. So I've had these conversations with her on my show as well. And a little bit, some of it was sort of out of context. Some of it is also like Mel did a great job of just like asking what the common person might ask in a way that they might ask, right? Not having a ton of experience and not liking cold exposure. So it's very interesting when you interview someone and you love it, and you interview someone and you're like, I don't really like it. Just the dynamic and what clips you decide to pull from it. And Stacey's, she wants women to start a bit warmer temperature. And the clip did sort of lean into it sounding like it wasn't good for women. And so there's a couple answers here, and I'm going to take the time to kind of go through the pieces because I think it's important, because people who are listening are going to say, but this, but that. So number one, you've had a traditional Chinese medicine person on the show before here. I know you have. And a lot of the beef I got feedback or flack for as I've been putting women in cold is from the traditional Chinese medicine community. So the first thing I want to say to every woman that's listening and every human that's listening is you get to decide what you do with your body. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your body, but I can tell you all the reasons that I see beautiful things happening in the health space by using cold and breath, together. The traditional Chinese medicine community is worried about cold womb. I've done an episode on my WELLPOWER podcast with a Chinese medicine person specifically breaking down the history of that, what the ethos is around that. And again, like, there are cultural pieces of the landscape and ways to mitigate cold womb if that's something that you're interested in, worrying about. And also traditional Chinese medicine is a lot more talking about, not talking about systemic cold for 3 minutes, which is really all we're doing, and talking about like longer term cold exposure. So just to put that out there, I'm certainly not a TCM, practitioner. Yeah. So knowing about that. And the other piece is understanding that every woman the context is important, right? So every woman is different biologically, physiologically in some way, because we're not mirror copies of each other exactly. But generally speaking, we have a context. Like, am I trying to lose weight? Am I trying to get stronger? Am I a high anxiety, depression, navigating some mental health challenges? What is my context? And that's ever so important. Stacey talks about, she speaks and spoke to me a bit about doing 55 degrees Fahrenheit as a temperature. That's a better starting point for women. I think there's 100 ways to slice this. We start with a cold shower, right? That's what you have access to, and that's where you want to start. And that's going to give you short-term benefits, not long-term benefits. And it's also a great place to practice. We see all over like TikTok, people filling bowls with cold water and ice cubes and sticking their face in to get mammalian dive reflex, to slow the heart rate, to feel emotional boosts, to get a little bit better sleep. There are some of those things there. Same with cryotherapy. So that's like all cool and it's fun to play with. What I don't love is the notion that it's not good for women.
Right.
That takes it away from women's choice. That makes people feel, I want people to feel like it's approachable and it's something that they can experience. And for every person who's listening and every female who's listening, that there are no two modalities. I've used a lot of things and I've failed with injections and peptides. I've had fails in my life where I've learned, because this is what I do as a coach, but there are no two modalities that have all the biohacks that I've ever worked with and worked through with clients and myself, like using breath work to understand the nervous system plus cold exposure, that create as effective and efficient transformation. And it's not just about the body, it's about how people feel about themselves. And I think this is the thing that we miss a little on the Instagram post, where people are like jumping off of a cliff into a body of cold water and it's like sensational and all of that. It's fun to do that. Sure, play with it. But what I see with women who do go in cold is there is a pivotal shift in the people that they get out of the cold and they go and they are in the world. There's a capacity shift saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to ask for the raise. I'm going to go out with the guy. I'm going to get the divorce. I'm going to, whatever the thing is, they feel like not only can I do hard things, but holy shit, I was born into this world to be this person who can do so much. And let me like step forward into my dreams instead of settling for mediocrity. And that sounds like 3 minutes in a cold tub can give you that. But the reality is, yes, it does.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've only done cold baths a handful of times, maybe 3. I've done the cold showers because it's easy and accessible to me.
Yeah.
But I have to say, there's definitely women that will say, I could never do that. Like, oh my gosh, I hate cold. But like you just said, when you do it, there is this like transformation that kind of happens because you have to push yourself to handle those 3 minutes, and you can. It's just knowing the tools, which is breath, to be able to withstand the cold for that period of time. And there is this transformational mindset shift that you go through because you're like, I could do this. I could do it 30 seconds longer. Like, oh, actually, I could do 15 seconds. You know, so I love that you mentioned it, because that is really the big piece here that people are training for in doing cold exposure. Of course, there's plethora of health benefits, but it's the mindset shift that could happen.
Sure. Yeah, just what you said, which is meet yourself where you're at. I'm not advocating that you're like Joe Rogan, like 21 minutes at 38 degrees and you're like shivering convulsively in the water. Like, cool, I get it. Like, no slight on Joe for being like doing whatever he did in the beginning of his ice bathing days. But it's really like, how do you like walk slowly through the door, right? And I think that in general health, any female in general health, general good health, can do a 2-minute ice bath at 40 degrees.
Yeah. Like, definitely the cold showers, I think is to do.
Or sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be spicy. Okay. It's going to be spicy. You're going to get in. You're like, this is what cold water feels like.
You're like, I'm okay. I did it. Awesome. Let me try more tomorrow.
Yeah.
But how about cycle syncing for cold exposure? What should we know from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of cultural components to take into consideration as well. And some women feel like crap when they have their periods. So if it doesn't align with you or your cultural beliefs or your body, how you feel, then don't do it while you have your period. I have not found any research that really shows that there is a negative effect from a specific time of the month that you are doing. And also we know there's not enough research around females, but I've put more than 5,000 people one-on-one in cold exposure, done plenty of group work. If you understand how to breathe well and you get yourself into a cold plunge, there's really no time that's going to be like bad or wrong. But I would say like it's going to be more challenging on those 5 days leading up to your period. And there are moments that you have to decide with your intuition that you're like, I'm super, super stressed because things are going on with work or family or community. Or maybe perimenopausal, menopausal, my hot flashes, my body's stressed, my hormones are everywhere. You have to decide, is the ice bath the thing is it going to just like my allostatic load, my stress bucket's going to overflow and it's just going to be not good for me? Or is it the moment that I can actually like reset my nervous system, give it a little rehab? Because the cold exposure is challenging to do, but when you get out, you have a parasympathetic rebound. And there is something about the nature of that fluctuation, of that arousal flexibility from like, whoa, I'm in sympathetic. I've talked my system by breathing correctly into being calm as calm as I can in the cold. And then you get out and your body's like, I survived and I'm going to thrive. And you have this beautiful parasympathetic rebound and everything kind of slows down and you get a little hungry and you sleep really well that night. And so it's just knowing from your own intuition, making the choice for you. Do I need to use this as a reset, or do I need to like step away from this for today?
Great. And timing wise, so better morning or night? Was the other question I was going to ask. Well, okay, let's ask.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, morning or night. I think so. Any time of day you can get, if you're at an ice bath, it's not like, well, it's 4:04, this is the wrong time, let me not do it. It's like any time of day you can get access to it. That's beautiful. I would say take an ice bath. Women are going to have, it's going to be slightly easier for them to have less of a shiver response in the daytime. That we typically see that. And men, just if we're speaking about men from a 24-hour hormone cycle kind of tolerate cold daily much better. So it's the one thing I would say is just like fasting. I'm a little bit more reserved with females. It's like if you can get like 3 cold plunges in a week, you're aces. Like there's no reason to beat yourself up or go every single day. And also there's times that I'm like, I'm doing a 30-day challenge. Like 8 years ago when I first started doing this, I'm like 30-day challenge. And everyone was like, are you okay? But have fun with it, play with it. But when you know I've reached my limit, then like, yeah, take a breather. And so I would say a few times a week, 2 or 3 times, getting a consistent practice is more important than time of day. And my favorite time of day to do it is like sunset, because you're getting low level light. You're setting yourself up for success, like in the sense of like, okay, I'm beginning to unwind my day when I get out. Your metabolism boosts, like for the 36 hours after a cold plunge, it's like 200% plus metabolism boost. I get a little hungry. I then take my time to cook a little dinner. And then after I eat, sun sets, I can set myself up for really good sleep that night. So I like kind of love that unwinding process.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after exercise, I heard that you shouldn't do a cold plunge after exercise because it inhibits that muscle growth or the muscle repair.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. The first thing is, sure, yes, it can inhibit if you're doing like hypertrophic workout with like big heavy weights and all of that. And also like if you're a bodybuilder and you're really trying to like make gains and you want to be really prescriptive, then like, okay, I would say pre-cool before you train. Like if you're really looking at the perfect optimization, get in the ice bath. The most annoying part is get out of the ice bath and change your bathing suit into your sports bra, which I'm always like, this is like the hardest part of the workout is like trying to be wet and change.
Right.
And then go train. And that's like awesome. But afterwards, stay away from it 5 to 6 hours if you can. And if you throw yourself in for like 30 seconds because you're just like hot, sweaty, and you really just want to cool off, Dr. Mike T. Nelson did some research showing that that's not really going to affect that. But yeah, a longer ice bath, you probably want to keep away from any of your training, like just to be safe, and definitely use it on your recovery days.
Does doing a cold plunge, does that affect our hormones in any way? I assume cortisol especially, right?
I'm so glad you brought that up. So Dr. Thomas Seeger, researcher, owner of Morosco Forge, great guy, has done a look-see into the cortisol thing. And what we see with cortisol is that actually the ice bath modulates cortisol, which means it's, and you'll see research on both ends. If you really dig, you'll see some there's some cortisol spikes and some where there isn't. And there's some like peripheral stuff that's out there. And that's important to know because everybody's different. And we don't know if that cortisol in some cases comes from the person standing next to the ice tub where the anticipation of the ice bath is like worse than the ice bath itself. But when we look at cortisol in the ice bath, we see it as a modulator, which means it's going to move the cortisol in the direction with which you need it, which is not a big spike in cortisol. So that's an important piece to know because people worry about that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so moving into more like just to top this all off with some more biohacking. So is there anything you're excited for in the female space for biohacking that increases longevity and performance and sleep? Like anything out there that you're just like wowed by?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to talk about breath work. I know that some people are like, this is so boring and it's low-hanging fruit and it's like not always specific to women, although really understanding that we have a part of our month that we can uptake oxygen up to 25% less based on some of the studies. So learning how to really breathe biomechanically well is just, it's always going to be the number one thing you can do to like change and organize sort of your stress response and things like that. I think there's a couple of female biohacks that don't get talked a lot about out there. And so I would just say there are things like the VFit, which is intravaginal red light therapy.
I have not heard that anymore.
And I was like, when I first, like a number of years ago, when I first put it on social, I like called my mom first and was like, my mom's pretty conservative. So I was like, Mom, just so you know, I'm going to put this red light therapy device. It looks like a dildo or a vibrator. Like it's intravaginal. And I just like want to tell you that I'm like, it's going to end up on Facebook and all your friends are going to see it and, you know, all the things. But it's helpful for women who are navigating various different things going on intravaginally, whether that be like intravaginal dryness or other challenges that come up, like postpartum, pre-baby, enhancing their sex lives. Like there's a lot of things there for it. And then women after childbirth, quite often we're like going back into the world of fitness and activity, and we're like, oh, I'm in class and I just peed myself a little bit. And I hear it a lot, and because women will ask me about it and in my DMs, but they don't talk about it a lot in public. So there's a electrostim device called the YARLAP. And again, I don't have affiliations with these companies. These are the brands that like I've known and used with clients and have worked. And YARLAP is like an electrostim device you put inside of you, and it helps Kegel you, for lack of a better, just to simplify it. It squeezes the internal muscular walls and it helps build up strength there again after you've had this beautiful child. And so you feel like you can be a bit more confident going out in the world, that you're not going to like sprinkle and tinkle or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
So I think those things are important to talk about. And then the other thing that I'm kind of hot on right now is ozone therapy. It's not necessarily just for females, but so many women show up to me with like Lyme, mold, toxicity, like that. There really are simple ways to get ozone in your home, to learn how to use it and feel safe about it, or even go to a clinic and get like major autohemotherapy, which is when they mix ozone in your blood and put it back in your system. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So if you were to give a 30-day protocol for somebody just starting out to really optimize their health again and feel their most vital self again with, vitality and just radiance again, what would be your plan for 30 days that you would like to put them on?
Oh, amazing. This is a good question. I would, for a 30-day protocol, without trying to overstack someone, I would make sure that they're taking a good magnesium for certain, because it helps so much with like stress and sleep and things like that. I would have them doing 3 cold water plunges or showers. I would love it to be cold water immersion if I could have my choice, 3 times a week. I would have them eating 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. That could be the protein of your choice, but I would lean into eggs and red meat, grass-fed, etc., if you're open to eating animal meat. And I would have them training 5 days a week, 2 to 3 times strength training, 1 day of cardio, preferably sprinting, and 1 day of like functional movement or something that just really brings a woman joy. And then taking those other couple days for like walks, recovery, rest, hikes, family time, hot baths, just getting some more rest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think anybody could do that. That's the perfect way.
It's available, and almost everything I talked about is like relatively low cost, right? I think that's the other thing to say is there's a ton of way you can spend money very quickly on 100 things, but that's a relatively low cost way and moving the ball forward.
I'm going to drop in because it's honestly something that is my ride or die that I have to take with me everywhere. You mentioned magnesium. Magnesium breakthrough is amazing.
Yeah, my favorite.
Okay, Bioptimizers, plug it in, show notes, discount code, because it's amazing. It's legit the best on the market, so highly recommend trying that. And it has 7 forms of magnesium, so there's lots of benefits to it.
Yeah.
But sleep, let's like wrap this with a bow, because I mentioned earlier sleep is the most important, and people don't really understand why like what we need to do to optimize it. And I think there's a lot of factors that come in play to optimize sleep. But what would be some of your first recommendations to really maximize good quality sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I'm my best friend, with just a shout out, Mala Eastman. She's like my bestie in Austin, and she's like #1 sleep podcast and a sleep coach. And so I've learned a lot from her that I apply to my clients and even myself. So the number one thing is wake time, getting a consistent wake time. Even if you have to go to bed later than normal, it's still giving your body that wake time. We talked about circadian rhythm style eating, so eating before the sun goes down. And then the big thing for me as well, I think people don't do very well, is like the unwind process. So as like a breathwork guide, facilitator, expert, whatever you want to say, breathwork is something I have in my daily routine. It doesn't have to be an hour and have some cataclysmic trauma porn that we see on, social media, but getting some breath in the course of your day. And for most of my clients, the best time for them to get 10 minutes of breath work and downregulate is at night, so that it's almost like Pavlov's dogs. You have that moment, whether you're doing some breath after dinner, you're chilling out, maybe you're putting your blue blockers on, and you are setting yourself up to remind your nervous system it's going to go to sleep soon. So when we go to sleep, super exacerbated or in rumination and all of that, we don't sleep as well. Our latency it takes us a long time to fall asleep. That's what latency is. And all of those things can just be really detrimental to sleep. So for me, a breathwork practice at night, if you can't get it anywhere else during the day, or if you're like, I keep trying to meditate and it's not working, get in some like yoga nidra, some breath work before you go to sleep, so that your nervous system is like, oh, I'm safe to go to bed. And then, you'll just get deeper, longer, better sleep.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, Kristin, this has been amazing. We covered so much in this. I'm so thankful because you talk fast. That's why we got more in. I'm from New York originally, so people talk fast, get a lot more in the interview. It's really awesome. But where can people learn more about you? And of course, even work with you, because you do have a way that people could work with you. So.
Yeah. So I have a coaching program that is in the breath and cold landscape for anybody who wants to learn how to coach breathwork, cold exposure. I do contrast therapy as well. So we talk about sauna life, and that's SHERPABreathandCold.com. The certifications are typically live. We're doing our first one online in October. I work with women one-on-one in a container that's 6 to 12 months, where they come down to Austin. They stay in a suite. We have an intensive immersion for a couple of days where we go over and set them up for real success. And then we work together and we talk every week on the phone. So it's like, if you're ready for that, it's big pivotal change. They can reach out to me at Kristin Weitzel Official or wellpower.life. Far too many websites. And the one thing I would also say for anyone who's listening, that's a really great free resource, if you do nothing else, is go to SHERPABreathandCold.com/listen. And you can download a 10-minute breathwork track that I've recorded that's like calming, chilling. If you're in the middle of stress, pre-sleep, it's a really good down regulator. And I've recorded a 6-minute ice bath track, which just gives you like 2 to 3 minutes in the cold. And it just sets you up for breathing before you go in. And it could be an ice bath, it could be a shower, it doesn't matter. You're just like utilizing those 2 guided audios for your life, so that you feel like I'm in your pocket, even if you don't want to see me.
That's amazing. Oh, I love it. Of course, everything will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate you.
Yeah, same.